Shalom, shalom. Kahala Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. What's going on, Yashar? Been putting this one together for a while, just looking at a little bit of stuff here and there. So I wanna just let this be known. Some of this stuff is gonna be more of like a presentation format, and it's gonna be some things we're gonna definitely deal with on a scriptural basis as well. But and some of this stuff, and I just want to go ahead and say this now. No one person has all the truth. It's a part of all of us doing our work to put this piece of the puzzle together. So let's go ahead and let's start. All right, we're going to start right here in Genesis 10. And Cush begot, just as Genesis 10 and 8, and Cush begot Nimrod. He was the first to be a mighty man on the earth. Okay. So, as we look in this Torah, we clearly know that Nimrod is an actual person. I'm going to show y'all something today. We're going to show y'all that, we're just going to do this now. We're going to show you that Nimrod lives. And I'm going to prove that to you. He lived beyond Genesis 10. I'm going to show you this. Let's do this. It says, he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yahweh. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, and in the land of Shinar. Okay? So, he's the king of this place. It's just showing you the places that came about from this place, but he's the king of Shinar, right? Show you something funny the scribes done. You go to Genesis 14. When you look at Genesis 14, it says, and it happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar. Now, we just showed you. You see that on the first line. Amraphel, king of Shinar. But we just showed you. The king of Shinar is Nimrod. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. So, think about it. You've never ever heard one story of King Nimrod and another king beside him or with him or around him. He conquered all of those people. So when you go to Genesis 14, this is verse number 1, and it happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar. They just changed his name. That's Nimrod still. You know what? I'm going to show you something interesting now. Let's deal with this. Genesis 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of common purpose. And it came to pass when they had migrated from the east, I want you to keep these things in mind. And they found the valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. Okay? So this is giving you the rundown of when Nimrod did these actions. And then we're going to see, it says, they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them in fire. And the bricks served them as stone, and the bulletmen served them as mortar. And they said, come, let us build a city and a tower with its top to heaven, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed across the whole earth. Well, here's the riddle. It shows you that actually still happened anyway. And then let's go down to Genesis 10, 15. Well, Genesis 10 and 20. These are the descendants of Ham by their families and their languages and their lands and their nations. Let me go back to that. Let's go to 18. The Arvadite, the Zermite, the Hamathite, afterward, the families of the Canaanites branched out. So, from Genesis 11, they did they did become dispersed. This is going to be key because we're going to start to show who these people are in history. All right, when we go, let's deal with Genesis 10:6. The sons of Cush, well, let's just deal with Genesis 10:7. The sons of Cush were Seba, Hava, Sabath, Rama, Sabekta, the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. When you look at Genesis 10:7, Dedan, Rama, Sabekta, Rama, Sheba, these names can be tracked back to Sanskrit. So people want to deal with that or not, that's on you. But you can track these names back to Sanskrit, and that becomes very important. Now let's look at some stuff. So we know that Cushites, let's just take a look. So we know the Cushite custom is to have those leopard skins. This is their custom. Now, you get something very interesting right there. One second. And you got to say to yourself, well, we know we can find these customs in another place as well. And where can we find these customs? Right there in India. So we find these customs in India, and you can look at Shiva. Now they're going to try to throw you off every now and then, and they're going to show you this tiger skin, but if you pay attention, that's a leopard skin skirt. That's the same stuff they're wearing. And I used to look at this, I don't know, and it just kind of stick out funny. I'm just to prove that to you. Where's that stock photo at? Yeah. When you look at this one, you can just look at what he's wearing. It's clear to show you. Those are spots. They always have him sitting on this tiger, but those are leopard spots. It's just the same. It's just the same, right? So Shiva always has on this leopard. So I said to myself, okay, well, that's got something to do with Hinduism. So I'm looking at the families of Ham in a different eye. And we're going to go over to this book, The Two Babylons. And something very interesting is said in this book. Let me get there. All right. We're going to go to The Two Babylons, page 41. And this chapter is subject section 4, the death of the child. And when you start to look at this is talking about, you see the name, Salaki. This is talking about Nimrod, who's talking about how Nimrod died. It's talking about Nimrod. Let's jump up here. It says, commentary of Augustine Ninus, which is Nimrod, as referred to by Viles, is called the King of India. And the word India in classical writers do not always yet commonly means Ethiopia or the land of Cush. Those the Chapes of the land of Eastern Cushites is called an Indian river. And it says, from the Cushites or Ethiopians of Africa, Osiris or Diodorus Succulus is called an Indian by extraction. It says, there can be no doubt that the Ninus, or Nimrod, king of India, is a Cushite or Ethiopian Ninus. So all they're telling you is the same bloodline. It's not so much about where it is, but King Nimrod is the king of India. So I say to myself, okay, how can let's track some of this down. So if Nimrod is the king of India, and according, you look in the Jasher, it tells you something about the building of the Tower of Babel. And the thing that's real funny about the building of the Tower of Babel is that there's only Hamitic families here that do this. It's not saying nobody else was around, but when it came down to the building, that would be Put, Mizraim, Cush, and Canaan. So these four families did that. But at this same time that they're doing it, Nimrod is the king. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all the earth was of one tongue and of one union. Now I want to look at something. The punishment, and we've shown this before, but the punishment of the people of the Tower of Babel, there was 3 punishments handed out. And the Lord smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and their designs. Those who said, this is book of Jasher, chapter 9, verse 35. Those who said, we will ascend into heaven and serve our gods, became like apes and elephants, black and white colored. Those who said, we will smite the heaven with arrows, the Lord killed them, one man through the hand of his brother. And the 3rd division of those said, we will ascend into heaven to fight against him. The Lord scattered them throughout the earth. Now, I've been looking, right? And when I look, I can only find one tower in the whole world that shows apes and elephant people helping on a tower. And that's going to be right here in India. Now, 2 Babylons just told you King Nimrod is the king of India. Now I want to look at this. Now you look at some of this Indian history, we know for a fact a lot of the Hamitic families, the Egyptians, the Nagas, a lot of them worship the serpent. Now I want to show y'all this. When you look, this is the oldest carved relief in India. And it shows a serpent that becomes a person, I want y'all to keep this in your mind. Now remember, these are supposed to be the same Cushite tribes, right? Supposed to be the same people. And remember, like we said, Shiva always wears this Cushite garment. So then, you know what, let's just go ahead and look at this. So, and Nimrod is also said to be a giant in the Septuagint. Well, in India, Shiva is a giant. Now, we just showed you Shiva wears the leopard. But in India, they worship this as a god. You see his black skin, and you see the crescent moon on his head. I want you to keep all of this in your memory, because it's going to become important in just a second. So you see the crescent, and you see they've made Shiva into a giant. And remember, like I said, no matter what, all these depictions, you look at Shiva, this is a giant. But in all his depictions, he's always got that leopard skirt on. And you see that crescent moon right there on the side of his head. Keep that in your mind, y'all. It's going to become important. So I say to myself, is it possible that, is it possible that this Hinduism spread it from India eastward going towards Israel and Africa? So I want you to see something.
Sometimes we come across YouTube videos claiming that the Islamic Kaaba in Mecca used to be a Hindu temple and so on. Obviously, we all see the similarities of Hindu worship around Kaaba, the way they dress, and how they circumambulate Kaaba, shave off their hair, sacrifice animals. They all remind one of Hinduism. They even worship the black stone just like the Hindus do in Kamakya Devi temple even today. What they do is doubtlessly pagan. So does it mean that Hinduism spread all the way to Arabia from India? What?
We're just going to stop right there. I think he just made a great argument for himself. Hinduism that spread from there to Arabia, up around to Nineveh, right? Now remember, Torah said, and that's going to be Genesis 11 and 2. And it came to pass, when they migrated from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. Okay. So let's look a little bit more evidence. So is it possible that this stuff spread, right? Slocky for my hand shaking. So let's get this. And let's deal with that real quick. We ain't gonna worry about that. And when it come down to this word Semitic, that is not Shemitic. Semitic just means mixed. It does not mean Shem. It means mixed. Period. Modern regions of Israel to the west bank of Gaza Strip, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria between the early Bronze Age 3000 BC till the first century of Common Era. Pay attention to what it say. And this goddess in the picture looks similar to the Vedic god carrying weapons in the four hands. This is Canaanite gods, right? Haha, she holds two snakes aloft over her heads, or the two horses below her feet, and a skull similar to Kali. Now remember, we just talked about serpents, so we just showed serpents on those walls and how they was looking at them, right? It says her name, Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hector, Demeter, Kali, Anana. So remember, Anana, that's the Babylonian god. We know Astarte, that would be the Canaanite god, but it's the same person. Or Ishtar is the Assyrian or Babylonian goddess of fertility, love, war, sex, and the counterpart of the Sumerian Inanna. Checkmate. Canaanites built a temple for Lachama thousands of years before the Hebrews arrived. So don't intertwine us with this, because Yahweh actually tried to give us the covenant to send us to this land to destroy this. I'm gonna stop right there. So we see enough from that to see that this culture did have influence, and this was definitely a Hamitic thing, right? So when we look at all of that, we've been putting all this together, and I want to read y'all a little something. It's an article, and this article is called "The Canaanites Were Not Black People." You want to look this up for yourself. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to look at some parts, and we'll look at this. It says, before there was in Egypt, all of the land was called Nubia. When God tells us the story of how Japhet's land was stolen, he's talking about Lower Nubia was taken from the Nubians and renamed Egypt. Now that's a very interesting concept, because what this gentleman is saying is that the original people of Japhet are the original people who live in that land. And that's very interesting. I also want to read another part of this, because all of this is going to come into play in just a second. Now, like I said, and now look, he reads right here. Now, this is a brother. He's also on the truth. Let's keep this in mind. And this article is kind of old. He said the Israelites were all black people, the cousins of the Nubians, the Cushites, and the Puntans, and the fruit of this King David, the Israelite king, and his best friends were Cushites and the Nubians, and they were considered the same family. King Solomon's best friends were the Nubians, and the queens of Sheba was a wife of his. Sheba meant black or dark skin. King Solomon's son by the queen of Sheba, who created the first dynasty of Ethiopia. So I want y'all to peep game. Who you think these Cushites are and who y'all think just the Ethiopians are, it's not the same people. Created the first dynasty of Ethiopia in 950 BC after all the wars against the Canaanites. See that? King Solomon and King David both will state in the open that they are all black people and black kings and queens. There are many poems of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and many of their poems that clearly states by the King of Israel that he is black-skinned and the sun has burnt him just as he has burnt all of Israel, for he was hated by the enemy who hated their skin. He also states that he was a slave in Egypt and how the Lord made them all free. And it says, and all the children of Ethiopia, and all the children of King Solomon, and the Israelite king of the Queen of Sheba. Okay, so this brother clearly makes it clear that the lower Nubians, that those are the children of Japhet. I'm not saying it's true. I'm going to just say it is actually a very good statement, and it makes a lot of sense. Because what he's showing is the Hamitic people are not exactly what you think. And I know you've watched enough of my videos that you probably understand where this is going. So we look, like I said, and Nimrod has to be an Indian. Now I want to show y'all something. And remember, these Indians worship the serpent, right? And we know Genesis 3 tells you that the serpent is real. So I want to show you this. So we're saying, so they show you the serpent is real, right? So I want you to see this.
I read Genesis. Cain was marked. I read Genesis. Cain was marked. Therefore, I believe in white supremacy. I read Genesis. Cain was marked. I read Genesis. Cain was marked. Therefore, I believe in white supremacy. Therefore, I believe in white supremacy.
So you see that? So watch this. Cain was marked. The serpent lives.
Yeah, on the Black Sea. All right, that is the head, and once you understand mud fossils and you know how to look at this and look at it in the microscope and everything else, and understand the textures and the way skin changes in different locations like the lips and the eyelids and so forth. There's no question this is real. None whatsoever. All right, now I said it's a red-blooded creature. Well, there's your red blood. That's the arterial blood. Same thing if you crack your head open, you're going to gush red blood all over the place. Now, that's her, or his, or her, or who's ever crest. And they have this variegation, lumpy-looking thing in the back of their head. That's all. And as it got crashed in here, this is not smashed in from being smashed. That flute here is cracked. And this one looks to be injured too. And then there's some injury to the front is seen as well. All right, this is the injury in the front here. You can see, whenever you see this red blood running down, something got injured there. Now, this crack here, they don't carve those. That is a crack like you get in your skin, like a wrinkled skin. This particular, and when you look at it close enough, you understand the skin around the eye and the eyelids and so forth is different, and it is different in this as well as being different in everybody that has that different kind of skin. All right, you see that? That's from the muzzle going back to the face skin, and that's the eye and so forth. This thing's been laying around for a long time. She's had it for quite some time, and she got it from somebody else. I don't really know the extreme amounts of details, but the thing has been around for quite some time. Well, a very, very long time in my opinion. And that's another shot. You know, you see the crack, you see the lip tissue and the eye tissue and the different colors. And I'll show you a little more on this because there's statues, all kinds of stuff that goes along with this. All right, of course, you're on YouTube now watching this video, but I do have Mud Fossil Research on Facebook. That's a group, and I have Mud Fossil Revelations, Mud Fossil Revelations. That's the one that has the meaning to it, what these things mean about our history and our future. And then I have Science Mysteries at Mud Fossil University. We're going to call it a Naga head, and I'll show you why. And it has this crest. And I looked at this very carefully, and I certify that 100% authentic. And if anybody can show me why it isn't, and I can show you why it is. All right, this is the underside of Kim's head. This is the neck. That is where the tongue, this I believe is actually the tongue. And this is where the throat comes out. That's the front right there. This is the red and the black. It's a red-blooded creature, and that's also from the crack in the back of the head. It leaked the red blood out. This is, if you know to look at the architecture of the vertebra of whatever creature it was, I have no clue, but this is the architecture of vertebra. This is the red blood that would be associated with the arterial stuff. This, blood, obviously. There is some dark around here, which is heavily oxidized blood. It's either from the vein or it's heavily oxidized. And that is exactly the architecture of what your throat is. It came down just like this to a neck. Now, and then there's this artery, and there's a vein over here. I don't think you can see it, but it's up in this area. Now, I looked at it over so closely, there is no question what it is. It was alive. Okay, this is the reddish, I don't know if you can see well in this, but it's the reddish one, and that's the black one. So that's always the arterial, which has the oxygenated blood, and that is the return, which is the vein, which is black because it has the deoxygenated blood. All right, this is a white naga. I have no clue if it's associated or not, but it's similar looking. It might have a cresty looking, things like the lips and the eyelids and so forth. There's no question this is real. None whatsoever. All right.
The one thing about this, if you ever really watched this guy, he said a woman had this statue, and it had been in her family for a long time. And she said she had never paid attention to it. One day she put it outside, and it got rained on. And when she went over to it to look at it, it had changed colors, and all of the features And he's got another video at Mud Fossils where he shows this, where it's wet and you see all the blood, you see all the different tissue. So when the Torah said the serpent was real, serpent is real, my friend. So I want to say, Kahala Yahweh, all praise to Yahweh. Thank you for anybody who came, got something from this. Shalom.